Clara Martinez had just finished her double shift at the diner when she saw her, a teenage girl in a torn pink prom dress, sobbing on the sidewalk in the pouring rain. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks like black rivers, and her once perfect updo had collapsed into wet tangles. Clara didn't hesitate. She pulled over and opened her car door, not knowing that this single act of kindness would transform both their lives forever. The girl looked up with desperate eyes and whispered something that would echo through the years. "Please, I just need to get to my prom. It's all I have left." Little did Clara know, she wasn't just helping a stranger. She was saving the future CEO of one of the country's largest media companies. And 15 years later, that same broken girl would become her boss. With words that would bring Clara to tears. "I've waited my whole career to find you again." Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button for more real, emotional, life-changing stories like this, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The rain hammered against Clara's windshield as she navigated the winding streets of Brookfield Heights, a neighborhood she rarely had reason to visit. It was nearly 9 o'clock on a Saturday night in May, and she should have been home hours ago, but the diner had been short-staffed again, and tips had been surprisingly good for a rainy evening. Her 12-year-old son Diego was spending the night at his best friend's house, which meant Clara could actually take her time driving home for once, maybe even stop for a coffee without worrying about getting back. To relieve the babysitter, the windshield wipers struggled against the downpour, creating a rhythmic squeak that matched the exhaustion in Clara's bones. She had been working 2 jobs for the past 3 years, ever since Diego's father had disappeared without so much as a forwarding address, leaving behind nothing but unpaid bills and broken promises. The diner job paid the rent, barely, and her weekend cleaning gig at the office complex downtown helped cover groceries and Diego's school supplies. It wasn't the life she had imagined when she was young and full of dreams, but it was honest work, and she was proud that she could provide for her son without asking anyone for help. As she rounded a corner near Brookfield High School, her headlights illuminated something that made her heart skip a beat. There, huddled against the brick wall of the school's main entrance, was a young woman in what appeared to be a formal dress. Clara slowed her car, squinting through the rain-streaked glass to get a better look. The girl couldn't have been more than 17 or 18, and she was clearly in distress, her shoulders shaking with what Clara recognized as the kind of sobbing that comes from deep, soul-crushing disappointment. Clara's first instinct was to keep driving. She had learned, through years of struggle and disappointment, that getting involved in other people's problems usually led to complications she couldn't afford. She had Diego to think about, and her own survival depended on staying focused on her own challenges. But something about the scene tugged at her maternal instincts. The way the girl's formal dress was clearly expensive but now torn and muddy. The way she sat alone in the rain as if the whole world had abandoned her. The girl was wearing a soft pink gown that had probably cost more than Clara made in 2 weeks at the diner. The fabric was delicate, clearly not designed to withstand the harsh reality of a spring thunderstorm, and now it clung to the girl's thin frame like a second skin. Her hair, which had obviously been professionally styled earlier in the evening, hung in wet strands around her face, and her makeup had run in dark streaks down her cheeks. She looked like a fairy tale princess who had stumbled into the wrong story, beautiful and tragic and utterly lost. Clara pulled her beat-up Honda Civic to the curb and rolled down the passenger window, letting the rain spray into her car. "Hey, honey, are you okay?" she called out, having to raise her voice over the sound of the storm. The girl looked up, startled, and Clara could see that her eyes were red and swollen from crying. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Across the divide between the car and the sidewalk, 2 women from clearly different worlds, connected by nothing more than circumstance and compassion. "I'm fine," the girl said, but her voice cracked on the words, betraying the lie. She attempted to stand up, wobbling slightly on her high heels, and Clara noticed that one of the shoes was missing its heel entirely, explaining the unsteady gait and probably contributing to the fall that had torn her dress. "You don't look fine, sweetheart," Clara said gently, turning off her engine and getting out of the car despite the rain immediately soaking through her uniform shirt. She approached the girl slowly, the way you might approach a wounded animal, with patience and obvious good intentions. What's your name? Do you need help getting somewhere? The girl's composure crumbled completely at the kindness in Clara's voice. Fresh tears mixed with the rainwater on her face as she sank back down against the wall, pulling her knees up to her chest in a gesture that made her look much younger than her formal attire suggested. "I'm Sophia," she managed to say between sobs. "Sophia Clearwater. And I just wanted to go to prom like a normal person, but everything went wrong. Everything always goes wrong." Clara knelt down beside Sophia, not caring that the wet pavement was soaking through her work pants. She had heard the name Clearwater before. Everyone in town had. The Clearwater family owned half the commercial real estate in the county, including the office building where Clara worked her weekend cleaning job. They were the kind of wealthy family that most people only read about in the society pages of the local newspaper, the kind of people who attended charity galas and had their engagement announcements featured prominently in the lifestyle section. "What happened, Hottie?" Clara asked, pulling off her own jacket and draping it around Sophia's shoulders. The jacket was nothing special, a worn denim thing she had bought at a thrift store, but it was dry and warm, and Sophia pulled it gratefully around herself. Sophia's story came out in fits and starts, interrupted by hiccups and fresh waves of tears. She had been dating a boy named Marcus for 6 months, a relationship her parents had grudgingly approved because his family moved in the same social circles. Marcus had asked her to prom in February, and Sophia had spent weeks planning every detail of the perfect night. She had bought her dress from a boutique in the city, had her hair and makeup done at the most expensive salon in town, and had even convinced her usually strict parents to extend her curfew until 2 in the morning. But when Marcus picked her up in his father's Mercedes, Sophia quickly realized that his idea of the perfect prom night was very different from hers. He had been drinking before he arrived at her house, and he had a flask of whiskey in his jacket pocket that he kept pulling from during the limo ride to the school. By the time they arrived at the dance, he was belligerent and handsy, grabbing at Sophia in ways that made her uncomfortable, and speaking to her in a tone she had never heard from him before. The breaking point came when Marcus cornered her in a hallway outside the gymnasium and tried to pressure her into leaving the dance early to go to a hotel room he had apparently booked without her knowledge. When Sophia refused, saying she wanted to stay and dance with her friends, Marcus had exploded in anger, calling her names that made her cheeks burn with shame and embarrassment. He had grabbed her arm hard enough to leave bruises and told her she was being a prude and a tease, that she owed him something for all the money he had spent on her. Sophia had managed to pull away from Marcus and run toward the school's main entrance, but in her haste to escape, she had caught her dress on a protruding piece of metal near the door, tearing a long gash in the expensive fabric heat. One of her heels had snapped off during her panicked flight, and she had twisted her ankle, sending her tumbling to the ground just outside the school. Marcus had followed her, continuing to yell and make a scene, until finally, the school's security guard had intervened and asked Marcus to leave the premises. But the damage was done. Sophia's perfect prom night was ruined, her dress was torn, her hair was a mess, and she was stranded at the school with no way to get home. She had called her parents, but they were at a fundraising dinner across town and wouldn't be able to pick her up for at least an hour. Her friends were all still inside the dance, probably unaware of the drama that had unfolded in the hallway, and Sophia was too embarrassed to go back inside and face their questions and pitying looks. So she had sat down outside the school to wait for her parents, but the rain had started, and with each passing minute, she felt more and more like a fool for believing that this night could have been different, that she could have been normal and happy like the other girls her age. The weight of disappointment and humiliation had become too much to bear, and she had been sitting there crying for nearly 30 minutes when Clara's headlights had found her. Clara listened to the whole story without interruption, her heart breaking for this young woman who seemed to have everything on the surface, but was clearly struggling with problems that money couldn't solve. She recognized something of her younger self in Sophia's tears, the disappointment of discovering that the people you trust can let you down in the most painful ways, that sometimes the things you look forward to most can become your biggest sources of heartbreak. "Where are your parents now?" Clara asked, when Sophia finished her story. "Are they still coming to get you?" Sophia pulled out her phone, which had somehow survived the evening's chaos, and checked her messages. "They texted 20 minutes ago and said the dinner is running long. They probably won't be here until after 11. She looked up at Clara with fresh tears in her eyes. "I just want to go home. I just want this night to be over." Clara looked at her watch. It was already past 9:30, and the rain showed no signs of letting up. The idea of leaving this young woman sitting alone in the storm for another hour and a half seemed unconscionable, but Clara also knew she was taking a risk by getting involved. The Clearwater family moved in circles where people were suspicious of motives, where a simple act of kindness might be interpreted as an attempt to curry favor or gain some advantage. Clara had no desire to be seen as someone trying to ingratiate herself with wealth and power. But as she looked at Sophia, shivering in the rain despite Clara's jacket, she knew she couldn't drive away. This wasn't about social status or family names. This was about one human being helping another in a moment of need. It was about the kind of person Clara wanted to be, the kind of example she wanted to set for Diego, even if he wasn't there to see it. "Come on," Clara said, standing up and extending her hand to Sophia. "Let me give you a ride home. You shouldn't have to sit out here in the rain." Sophia looked up at Clara with surprise and gratitude. "Are you sure? I don't want to impose. You've already been so kind." "It's no imposition," Clara said firmly. "I'm a mom, and if my son was ever in a situation like this, I would hope someone would help him. Besides, it's Saturday night. I don't have anywhere else I need to be." Sophia took Clara's hand and allowed herself to be helped to her feet. She was taller than Clara had initially realized, probably close to 5'8" even without her broken heels, and she had the kind of natural grace that suggested years of dance lessons or deportment classes. But there was also something fragile about her, a vulnerability that her expensive clothes and polished appearance couldn't quite hide. As they walked toward Clara's car, Sophia seemed to notice for the first time that Clara was wearing a diner uniform, the kind of polyester dress and apron combination that screamed working-class service industry. Clara saw Sophia's eyes take in the details, the name tag that read, Clara, the small stains that hadn't quite come out in the wash, the comfortable shoes designed for long hours on her feet rather than fashion. For a moment, Clara wondered if Sophia would change her mind about accepting the ride, if the reality of getting into a car with a waitress would somehow conflict with her upbringing or social conditioning. But Sophia surprised her. Instead of hesitation or judgment, Clara saw something that looked almost like relief in the young woman's eyes, as if the prospect of being helped by someone who understood hard work and genuine struggle, exactly what she needed in that moment. Clara opened the passenger door of her Honda and helped Sophia settle into the seat, adjusting the seatbelt around the bulk of the torn prom dress. The car was clean but obviously old, with nearly 200,000 miles on the odometer and a few cosmetic issues that Clara couldn't afford to fix. The radio only worked intermittently, the air conditioning was weak, and there was a small crack in the windshield that she kept meaning to repair. But it was reliable transportation, and it had never failed to get her where she needed to go. "Thank you," Sophia said quietly as Clara started the engine. "I know you don't know me, and you have no reason to help me, but I'm really grateful." Clara glanced at her passenger as she pulled away from the school. Even disheveled and tear-stained, Sophia was obviously beautiful, with the kind of bone structure that suggested good genetics and proper nutrition, the kind of skin that came from expensive skin care and regular dermatologist visits. But there was something in her eyes, a depth of sadness that seemed too mature for someone her age, that suggested her life wasn't as perfect as it appeared from the outside. "What's your address?" Clara asked as they drove through the rain-soaked streets. Sophia gave her directions to a neighborhood Clara had driven through, but never really explored, an area of large houses set back from the road behind gates and long driveways, where the mailboxes bore names that appeared on buildings and scholarship funds throughout the town. As they drove, Sophia began to talk more freely, perhaps finding it easier to open up in the relative anonymity of the car's dark interior. She talked about the pressure she felt to be perfect all the time, to represent her family's reputation in everything she did, to never show weakness or vulnerability because it might reflect poorly on the Clearwater name. She talked about feeling isolated from her peers, never sure if people liked her for herself or because of her family's wealth and influence. Clara found herself sharing some of her own story as well, talking about the challenges of raising Diego alone, about the way financial stress could make every decision feel fraught with consequences. She talked about the pride she took in her work, even when it was difficult or thankless, about the importance of teaching Diego that dignity came from doing your best with whatever circumstances you faced. The conversation was surprisingly natural, despite the obvious differences in their backgrounds. Clara realized that beneath the designer dress and expensive education, Sophia was dealing with some of the same fundamental human struggles that everyone faced. The desire to be loved and accepted for who you really were, the challenge of navigating relationships and disappointments, the quest to figure out who you wanted to become as you transitioned from childhood to adulthood. When they reached Sophia's neighborhood, Clara was struck by the sheer scale of the houses. These weren't just large homes, they were estates, with manicured lawns and professional landscaping, circular driveways and architectural details that spoke of custom construction and unlimited budgets. It was a world Clara had glimpsed only from the outside when she was cleaning the offices of the successful business people who lived in places like this. Sophia directed Clara to a gate that opened automatically as they approached, apparently triggered by a sensor in Sophia's purse or phone. The driveway was long and curved, lined with ornamental trees and strategically placed lighting that created an almost magical atmosphere despite the rain. The house itself was magnificent, a sprawling colonial with tall columns and multiple wings, the kind of place that probably had a name rather than just an address. As Clara pulled up to the front entrance, she could see lights on in several rooms, and she wondered what kind of conversations were happening inside. Whether Sophia's parents were worried about her or simply annoyed that their evening plans had been disrupted. She had texted them during the drive to let them know she was getting a ride home, but Clara suspected there would be questions about who had provided that ride and why it had been necessary. "This is it," Sophia said, but she made no move to get out of the car. Instead, she sat staring at the imposing facade of her family home, and Clara could see tension building in her shoulders. "I should probably go in and face the music. Are you going to be in trouble?" Clara asked, concerned about what kind of reception might be waiting for the young woman. Sophia shrugged, a gesture that seemed too casual for the gravity Clara sensed in the moment. "They'll want to know what happened, why I'm home early, why my dress is torn. They'll be disappointed that the evening didn't go according to plan, and they'll probably blame me somehow for not handling Marcus better." She turned to look at Clara with eyes that seemed much older than her years. "They love me, but they don't really understand me, you know? They think if you just work hard enough and follow the rules, everything will turn out perfectly. They don't understand that sometimes bad things happen to good people, that sometimes you can do everything right and still end up sitting in the rain with a torn dress." Clara felt a surge of protective instinct toward this young woman who seemed so lost despite having every material advantage. She reached over and squeezed Sophia's hand gently. "You didn't do anything wrong. Tonight, you stood up for yourself when someone was treating you badly, and that took courage. Don't let anyone make you feel like you should have just gone along with something that made you uncomfortable." Sophia's eyes filled with tears again, but these seemed different from the tears of frustration and humiliation she had been crying earlier. These looked more like tears of recognition, of being seen and understood by someone who had no agenda other than kindness. "I don't even know your last name," Sophia said suddenly. "You've been so kind to me, and I don't even know how to thank you properly." "Martinez," Clara said. "Clara Martinez. And you don't need to thank me. Helping people is just what we do for each other, you know? Besides, you would have done the same thing if you had seen someone who needed help." Sophia nodded, but Clara could see her thinking about something, processing the implications of this unexpected encounter. "Clara Martinez," she repeated, as if committing the name to memory. "I won't forget this. Or, you. Someday, when I'm in a position to help someone the way you helped me tonight, I'm going to remember this moment." There was something in the way Sophia said it, a solemnity that suggested she was making more than just a casual promise. Clara had the strange feeling that this conversation would stick with both of them, that they were creating a memory that would prove to be more significant than either of them could imagine in that moment. Sophia finally gathered her courage and opened the car door. stepping out into the rain that had softened to a gentle drizzle. Clara's jacket was still around her shoulders, and she started to take it off, but Clara waved her away. "Keep it," Clara said. "You can return it some other time." Sophia smiled, the first genuine smile Clara had seen from her all evening. "Thank you, Clara Martinez, for everything." Clara watched as Sophia walked to the front door of the magnificent house, her broken shoe making her gait uneven, but her posture somehow more confident than it had been when Clara first found her. The door opened before Sophia could knock, and Clara caught a glimpse of an elegant woman in cocktail attire, who must have been Sophia's mother, her face a mixture of relief and concern as she pulled her daughter into an embrace. As Clara drove back through the quiet streets toward her own much more modest neighborhood, she found herself thinking about the strange turns that life could take, the way a simple decision to stop and help a stranger could lead to such an unexpected connection. She thought about Sophia's promise to remember this night, to pay the kindness forward when she had the opportunity, and Clara hoped that the young woman would indeed find ways to help others as she navigated whatever path lay ahead of her. Clara's own apartment was dark when she arrived home, a stark contrast to the illuminated mansion she had just left. It was a small two-bedroom place in a complex that had seen better days, but it was clean and safe, and she had worked hard to make it feel like a real home for herself and Diego. The walls were decorated with her son's artwork and photographs of the two of them together, creating a warm atmosphere that no amount of money could buy. As she got ready for bed, Clara found herself wondering what would become of Sophia Clearwater, whether tonight's disappointment would prove to be a valuable lesson or just another painful memory in what seemed like a complicated young life. She hoped that Sophia would find her way to happiness and fulfillment, that she would learn to trust her own instincts and surround herself with people who appreciated her for who she really was rather than what her family name represented. Clara never could have imagined, as she fell asleep that night, that she had just met someone who would one day change the entire trajectory of her life. 15 years passed like pages turning in a book, each year bringing its own challenges and small victories, its own lessons learned and opportunities embraced. Clara's life evolved in the steady, unremarkable way that most lives do, marked more by gradual changes than dramatic revelations, shaped by the accumulation of countless small decisions and daily efforts, rather than grand gestures or sudden windfalls. Diego grew from a curious 12-year-old into a confident young man who had just graduated from college with a degree in engineering, achievement that filled Clara's heart with pride every time she thought about it. The boy who had once needed help with his math homework was now designing systems and solving complex problems, and he had done it all while maintaining the kindness and integrity that Clara had tried so hard to instill in him during their years together. Clara herself had evolved as well, though the changes were perhaps less obvious to outside observers. She had eventually left the diner and found work as an administrative assistant at a small nonprofit organization, a job that paid better and offered more regular hours, allowing her to spend more time with Diego Burr. During his crucial teenage years, she had even managed to take some night classes at the community college, earning an associate degree in business administration that had opened doors to better opportunities. Now, at 47, Clara worked as an executive coordinator at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown, a position that utilized her organizational skills and experience in ways that felt meaningful and engaging. She had a small but comfortable apartment in a better neighborhood, a reliable car that didn't require constant repairs, and enough financial stability to occasionally help Diego with his student loans and even take a burl vacation once in a while. It wasn't the kind of success story that made headlines, but it was the kind of steady progress that Clara valued most, built on hard work and persistence rather than luck or connections. She had learned to take pride in her achievements, modest as they might seem to others, because she knew exactly how much effort and sacrifice had gone into each step forward. The memory of that rainy night 15 years ago had never completely faded, though it had softened and blurred with time the way most memories do. Clara occasionally wondered what had become of Sophia Clearwater, whether the young woman had found her way to happiness and fulfillment, whether she had learned to navigate the complex world of wealth and privilege with grace and authenticity. Sometimes, when Clara read about the Clearwater family's business ventures in the local newspaper, she would think about the vulnerable teenager she had helped that night and hope that life had been kind to her. Clara never imagined that Sophia might be thinking about her as well, that the memory of that unexpected kindness had stayed with the young woman through all the years and changes that followed, shaping her understanding of genuine human connection and influencing the kind of person she was determined to become. Sophia's path through the years had been quite different from Clara's, marked by the kinds of opportunities and experiences that come with significant financial resources and family connections. She had gone to an elite private college where she studied business and communications, graduating summa cum laude with a degree that opened doors to internships at prestigious companies and graduate programs at top-tier universities. But the lessons Sophia had learned that night in the rain had stayed with her, influencing her choices in ways that sometimes surprised even her. She had found herself drawn to projects and organizations that focused on helping others, particularly young people who were struggling with challenges that money couldn't solve. She had volunteered as a mentor for first-generation college students, had served on boards of nonprofits that provided support services for single mothers, and had consistently used her family's influence to advocate for policies that would benefit working families. After earning her MBA from Wharton, Sophia had surprised her family by turning down offers from several established companies to join a small startup that specialized in creating media content with social impact. The company, called Inspire Media, had been founded by a group of young entrepreneurs who believed that television, film, and digital content could be powerful tools for positive change, creating stories that entertained audiences while also addressing important social issues. Sophia's combination of business acumen, financial resources, and genuine passion for the company's mission had made her an invaluable asset to Inspire Media. She had started as a junior executive, but her insights and leadership abilities had quickly become apparent, and she had been promoted rapidly through the organization. When the company's founder decided to step back from day-to-day operations to focus on creative projects, Sophia had been the unanimous choice to take over as CEO. Under her leadership, Inspire Media had grown from a small startup with big dreams into one of the most respected production companies in the industry, known for creating content that was both commercially successful and socially conscious. They had produced documentaries that sparked important conversations about inequality and justice, television series that featured diverse characters and storylines, and digital content that reached millions of young people with messages of hope and empowerment. But even as Sophia's professional success grew, she never forgot the lesson Clara had taught her that rainy night 15 years ago. That genuine kindness didn't require wealth or status. That sometimes the most important thing you could do was simply show up for another human being in their moment of need. She'd been looking for an opportunity to pay that kindness forward in a meaningful way, to find Clara Martinez and somehow repay the debt of gratitude she felt she owed. The opportunity came when Inspire Media decided to relocate its headquarters to Clara's city. Drawing by tax incentives and a lower cost of living that would allow the company to expand its operations while maintaining its commitment to fair wages and employee benefits. As CEO, Sophia was heavily involved in the planning for the move, including the recruitment of key staff members who would help establish the company's presence in its new location. When Sophia began reviewing resumes for the position of executive assistant to the CEO, a role that would require someone with exceptional organizational skills, discretion, and the ability to manage complex schedules and high-stakes communications, one name jumped out at her from the pile of her applications: Clara Martinez. The resume showed a trajectory of steady growth and increasing responsibility, from restaurant work to nonprofit administration to executive coordination. Exactly the kind of background that demonstrated the reliability and work ethic Sophia valued most. But it was the name that stopped Sophia's heart for a moment, that transported her back to that night outside Brookfield High School, when a kind stranger had offered help without expecting anything in return. Sophia immediately began investigating, using resources available to her through the company's human resources department and her own network of connections. She confirmed that this Clara Martinez was indeed the same woman who had helped her 15 years ago, that she lived in the same city where Inspire Media was relocating, and that she was currently employed at a marketing firm where her supervisors spoke highly of her professionalism and capabilities. The discovery felt like destiny to Sophia, as if the universe had aligned to give her the opportunity she had been hoping for since that transformative night in her youth. She knew she had to be careful about how she approached the situation, that Clara might be confused or even suspicious if Sophia simply called her out of the blue with a job offer. Instead, Sophia decided to handle Clara's application through normal channels, allowing her qualifications to speak for themselves, while quietly ensuring that she would be among the candidates selected for CALF interviews. Clara had applied for the executive assistant position at Inspire Media, almost on impulse, intrigued by the company's mission and reputation, but not really expecting to be considered for such a high-level BAS role. When she received a call inviting her for an interview, she was both excited and nervous, recognizing that this could be the kind of career opportunity that came along once in a lifetime. The Inspire Media offices were located in a sleek downtown building that had been completely renovated to accommodate the company's collaborative work style and commitment to environmental sustainability. As Clara walked through the modern, open-concept spaces filled with natural light and living plants, she felt both impressed and slightly intimidated by the obvious success and sophistication of the organization. The interview process was thorough but welcoming, involving meetings with several department heads and senior staff members who asked thoughtful questions about Clara's background and goals. Everyone she met seemed genuinely committed to the company's mission, and Clara found herself becoming increasingly excited about the possibility of working for an organization that was trying to make a positive difference in the world. The final interview was scheduled with the CEO, and Clara spent extra time preparing, researching Sophia Clearwater's background, and trying to anticipate what kinds of questions she might be asked. What Clara found was impressive. A young woman who had achieved remarkable success at an early age, who was known for her integrity and vision, and who had built a company culture based on respect for employees and commitment to social responsibility. When Clara arrived at the executive floor for her final interview, she was shown into a spacious office with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of the city. The space was elegantly furnished, but not ostentatious, with personal touches that suggested the occupant valued both professionalism and warmth. There were photographs of what appeared to be company events and charitable activities, awards for both business achievement and community service, and bookshelves filled with titles on leadership, social justice, and creative industries. Clara was examining a framed photograph of Inspire Media employees volunteering at a homeless shelter when she heard the office door open behind her. She turned around with a professional smile and an extended hand, ready to introduce herself to Sophia Clearwater, but the words died in her throat when she saw the woman standing in the doorway. Sophia had changed dramatically in the 15 years since that rainy night, transformed from a vulnerable teenager into a confident, accomplished professional. Her hair was shorter now, styled in a sophisticated bob that framed her face elegantly, and she wore a tailored suit that spoke of success and authority. But her eyes were unmistakably the same, and when those eyes met Clara's across the office, both women froze in recognition. For a long moment, neither spoke, both processing the impossibility of this reunion, the way fate had brought them together again in circumstances neither could have predicted. Clara felt her heart racing as memories of that night came flooding back. The torn pink dress, the rain, the broken teenager who had seemed so lost and alone. Sophia felt 15 years of gratitude and anticipation culminating in this single moment, the opportunity she had dreamed of finally presenting itself. "Clara Martinez," Sophia said finally, her voice warm with emotion she was trying to keep professional. "Please, sit down. We have so much to talk about." Clara sank into the chair across from Sophia's desk, still trying to process what was happening. "Sophia? Sophia Clearwater? I can't believe, I never would have imagined." She trailed off, shaking her head in amazement. Sophia smiled, and suddenly Clara could see the vulnerable young woman she had helped all those years ago, still there beneath the polished exterior of the successful CEO. I've been looking for you, Clara. Not actively, but hoping that someday I would have the chance to see you again, to properly thank you for what you did for me that night." "Thank me?" Clara said, genuinely confused. "Sophia, I just gave you a ride home. It was nothing really." "It wasn't nothing to me," Sophia said earnestly, leaning forward in her chair. "Clara, that night changed my life in ways you can't imagine. You showed me what real kindness looked like, what it meant to help someone without expecting anything in return. You treated me like a person, not like a name or a bank account, and you gave me exactly what I needed when I was at my lowest point." Clara felt tears prick at her eyes as she listened to Sophia speak. She had never forgotten that night either, but she had always thought of it as a small gesture, the kind of thing any decent person would do when faced with someone in distress. To learn that it had such a profound impact on Sophia was both humbling and deeply moving. "I've spent the last 15 years trying to live up to the example you set that night," Sophia continued. "When I started this company, when I made decisions about how to treat employees and what kinds of stories to tell, I always asked myself what Clara Martinez would do, how someone with your integrity and compassion would handle the situation." The conversation that followed was unlike any job interview either woman had ever experienced. They talked about their lives in the intervening years, about the paths that had led them to this unexpected reunion, about dreams achieved and lessons learned. Clara told Sophia about raising Diego, about the challenges and rewards of single motherhood, about finding purpose and dignity in work that mattered. Sophia shared her own journey, the pressure and privileges of growing up in a wealthy family, the process of finding her own voice and values, the satisfaction of building something meaningful with her life. As they talked, Clara began to understand that this wasn't really a job interview at all, or at least not in the traditional sense. Sophia had already decided to offer her the position. The only question was whether Clara would accept it. The salary and benefits package that Sophia outlined was generous beyond Clara's wildest dreams, including health insurance, retirement contributions, paid vacation time, and opportunities for professional development that would set Clara up for continued growth and success. But more than the financial benefits, Clara was drawn to the opportunity to work for someone she respected, to be part of an organization that was trying to make a positive difference in the world. She could see that Sophia had built something special at Inspire Media, a company culture based on the values they had both learned through their own struggles and challenges. "I want you to know," Sophia said, as the interview was winding down, "that I'm not offering you this job because of what happened 15 years ago. You're genuinely the most qualified candidate we've interviewed, and your experience and skills are exactly what we need for this role. The fact that we have this history together is just an incredible bonus, a chance for both of us to come full circle in a way that feels meaningful." Clara felt a surge of pride at Sophia's words, knowing that she had earned this opportunity through her own hard work and dedication. At the same time, she was moved by the idea that her simple act of kindness all those years ago had somehow planted seeds that were now blossoming into this unexpected opportunity. "I would be honored to work with you," Clara said, her voice thick with emotion. "When I helped you that night, I never imagined that it would lead to anything like this. I just saw someone who needed help, and I did what felt right." Sophia's eyes filled with tears as she stood up and walked around the desk to embrace Clara. "That's exactly why I knew you were the right person for this job," she said. "You still see people who need help, and you still do what feels right. That's the kind of person I want by my side as we grow this company." The transition into her new role at Inspire Media was smoother than Clara had dared to hope. Sophia had been right about Clara's qualifications. Her years of experience in administrative roles had prepared her well for the complex demands of supporting a CEO in a fast-paced, high-stakes environment. She quickly learned to manage Sophia's packed schedule, coordinate with department heads and external partners, and handle the constant flow of communications that came with running a successful media company. But beyond the professional aspects of the job, Clara found herself becoming genuinely invested in Inspire Media's mission and culture. She attended company meetings where she heard passionate discussions about upcoming projects, documentaries that would shine light on important social issues, television series that would feature underrepresented voices, digital campaigns that would reach young people with messages of hope and empowerment. She saw firsthand how Sophia's leadership style fostered creativity and collaboration, how employees at every level felt valued and heard. Clara also discovered that Sophia's success hadn't changed the essential qualities that had made her memorable that night 15 years ago. She was still thoughtful and empathetic, still willing to listen to different perspectives and consider how her decisions would affect others. She had learned to channel her sensitivity into effective leadership, using her understanding of human nature to build a team that was both productive and deeply committed to the company's goals. The working relationship between Clara and Sophia developed into something deeper than either had expected. They discovered that they complemented each other professionally in ways that went beyond their individual skills and experience. Clara's practical wisdom and grounded perspective helped balance Sophia's visionary thinking and ambitious goals. Sophia's creativity and strategic thinking inspired Clara to expand her own capabilities and take on greater responsibilities within the organization. As months passed, Clara found herself becoming more than just an executive assistant. Sophia began including her in strategic planning discussions, asking for her input on hiring decisions and operational improvements. Clara's insights, informed by her years of experience in different industries and her understanding of working-class perspectives, proved invaluable in helping inspire media stay connected to the communities it served. The personal friendship that grew alongside their professional relationship was equally meaningful to both women. They discovered that their different backgrounds and experiences created a rich foundation for conversation and mutual learning. Clara shared stories from her years as a single mother, the challenges of making ends meet while trying to provide stability and opportunity for Diego. Sophia talked about the pressures of growing up in a wealthy family, the expectations and responsibilities that came with privilege, the process of finding her own identity and values. Their friendship also extended to their families. When Diego came home for Thanksgiving during his first year out of college, Sophia insisted on hosting a dinner that brought together both families. Clara was nervous about the social dynamics, worried that the differences in their backgrounds might create awkwardness or tension. But the evening was a wonderful success, with Diego and Sophia discovering shared interests in technology and social justice, and Clara finding herself genuinely enjoying conversations with Sophia's parents, who had evolved considerably since their daughter's difficult teenage years. Mr. and Mrs. Clearwater had learned, through watching Sophia's success and happiness, that their daughter's values and choices were not rebellious phases to be outgrown, but rather authentic expressions of who she was meant to become. They had come to appreciate the people and experiences that had shaped Sophia's character, including the memory of that night 15 years ago, when a stranger's kindness had helped their daughter through a difficult moment. As Clara's second year at Inspire Media began, she found herself taking on even greater responsibilities. Sophia had been invited to speak at conferences and industry events, sharing her insights on socially conscious media production and ethical business practices. Clara coordinated these appearances, managed the travel logistics, and often accompanied Sophia to provide support and assistance. These experiences gave Clara exposure to the broader media industry and helped her develop a deeper understanding of the challenges and opportunities facing companies like Inspire Media. During one particularly memorable trip to a conference in Los Angeles, Clara and Sophia found themselves with an unexpected free afternoon when a scheduled meeting was canceled. They decided to explore the city together, visiting museums and galleries, walking through neighborhoods they had only heard about. As they sat in a small cafe overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Sophia turned to Clara with a serious expression. "I've been thinking about something," Sophia said, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. "I want to expand Clara's role at the company, to create a position that really utilizes all of her skills and experience." Clara looked up, surprised by the sudden shift in conversation. "What do you mean?" "I mean that you've become much more than an executive assistant," Sophia explained. "You're a strategic advisor, a cultural ambassador, a bridge between leadership and the rest of the organization. I want to formalize that role, give you the title and compensation that reflect your actual contribution to the company." The promotion that Sophia offered was beyond anything Clara had imagined when she first applied for the executive assistant position. The new role, Director of Strategic Operations, would involve overseeing several departments, participating in high-level decision-making, and representing the company at industry events and community functions. The salary increase was substantial, but more importantly, the position would give Clara the opportunity to have a real impact on the direction and culture of Inspire Media. Clara's acceptance of the promotion marked a turning point, not just in her career, but in her understanding of her own capabilities and potential. For years, she had defined herself primarily through her role as a mother and provider, measuring her success by her ability to support Diego and maintain stability in their lives. While those achievements remained important to her, she began to see that she had skills and insights that could contribute to something larger than her own family's well-being. The transition into her new role brought challenges that tested Clara's confidence and abilities. She found herself managing teams of creative professionals, negotiating contracts with distributors and partners, and making decisions that could affect the company's financial performance and reputation. There were moments of doubt and uncertainty, times when she wondered if she was qualified for such significant responsibilities. But Sophia's faith in her abilities never wavered, and gradually Clara began to trust her own judgment and expertise. She discovered that her years of experience in different industries had given her a unique perspective on business operations and human resources. Her understanding of working-class concerns and priorities helped Inspire Media create content that resonated with diverse audiences. Her practical approach to problem-solving complemented the creative vision of the company's artists and writers. As Clara's confidence in her professional abilities grew, she also began to see how her personal journey had prepared her for this unexpected chapter in her life. The resilience she had developed as a single mother, the empathy she had learned through her own struggles, the integrity she had maintained despite financial pressures, all of these qualities served her well in her new leadership role. The success of Inspire Media continued to grow under Sophia's leadership, with Clara playing an increasingly important role in the company's strategic direction. They produced a documentary series about single mothers pursuing higher education that won several awards and sparked important conversations about educational access and support services. They developed a television drama featuring a diverse cast of characters facing real-world challenges, which became both a critical and commercial success. Their digital content reached millions of young people with messages about mental health, social justice, and personal empowerment. But perhaps the most meaningful project for both Clara and Sophia was a documentary they produced about the power of random acts of kindness, exploring how small gestures could have profound and lasting impacts on both recipients and givers. The film featured real stories from people whose lives had been changed by unexpected kindness, and while Clara and Sophia's story was not explicitly included, anyone who knew them could see the inspiration behind the project. The documentary was nominated for an Emmy Award, and Clara found herself accompanying Sophia to the ceremony in Los Angeles. As she sat in the audience, wearing an elegant dress that Sophia had helped her choose, Clara thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a struggling single mother working double shifts at a diner to a successful executive attending one of the entertainment industry's most prestigious events, her life had been transformed in ways she never could have imagined. When Inspire Media's documentary was announced as the winner in its category, Clara felt tears of joy and pride streaming down her face. She watched as Sophia walked to the stage to accept the award, looking poised and confident, representing not just her own achievement, but the collective effort of everyone who had contributed to the project. In her acceptance speech, Sophia spoke about the power of storytelling to create connection and understanding between people from different backgrounds and circumstances. She talked about the importance of recognizing the humanity in everyone we encounter, of being willing to help others even when there's no obvious benefit to ourselves. Her words were general enough to apply to the documentary's broader themes, but Clara could hear the personal meaning behind them, the echo of lessons learned on a rainy night 15 years ago. After the ceremony, at the celebration party that followed, Sophia pulled Clara aside for a private moment. They stood on a balcony overlooking the glittering lights of Los Angeles, the city spread out below them like a galaxy of possibilities and dreams. "I need to tell you something," Sophia said, her voice serious despite the festive atmosphere around them. "None of this would have happened without you. Not just the documentary, but everything. The company, my career, the person I've become. That night when you stopped to help me, you changed the trajectory of my entire life." Clara shook her head, still uncomfortable with taking credit for Sophia's achievements. "You would have been successful no matter what. You have talent and intelligence and drive. I just gave you a ride home." "You gave me more than a ride," Sophia insisted. "You gave me a model for how to treat people, how to lead with compassion and integrity. Every major decision I've made in my career, I've asked myself what you would do, how someone with your values would handle the situation." Clara felt the weight of Sophia's words, the responsibility and honor of having influenced someone's life in such a profound way. At the same time, she recognized that Sophia's success was the result of her own hard work and choices, that the seeds of kindness Clara had planted that night had found fertile ground in Sophia's character and, quote, determination. "I'm proud of you," Clara said simply. "Not just for your professional success, but for the person you've become. You've used your privilege and opportunities to make a real difference in the world." As they stood together on that balcony, looking out over the city lights, both women reflected on the unexpected ways their lives had become intertwined. What had begun as a chance encounter between a struggling waitress and a distressed teenager had evolved into a friendship and partnership that had enriched both their lives immeasurably. The years that followed brought continued growth and success for both Clara and Sophia, personally and professionally. Diego completed his graduate degree and began his own career as an environmental engineer, working on projects that addressed climate change and sustainability. Clara took pride in watching her son apply the values she had taught him about hard work and service to others, seeing him become a thoughtful, compassionate adult who was committed to making a positive impact in his chosen pre-teen field. Sophia eventually met and married a documentary filmmaker who shared her passion for socially conscious storytelling, and Clara was honored to serve as the matron of honor at their wedding. The ceremony was elegant but intimate, held in the garden of the Clearwater family home, with an emphasis on meaningful traditions and personal touches rather than ostentatious display. As Clara watched Sophia exchange vows with her partner, she thought about how much both of them had grown and changed since that night 15 years ago. Sophia had evolved from a vulnerable teenager into a confident leader who used her influence to amplify important voices and stories. Clara had transformed from a struggling single mother into a successful executive who had found purpose and fulfillment in work that aligned with her values. But perhaps the most significant change was in their understanding of what success really meant. For both women, achievement was no longer measured solely by financial security or professional recognition, but by the impact they had on others, the relationships they built, and the contribution they made to creating a more just and compassionate world. Inspire Media continued to grow and evolve under their leadership, expanding into new markets and platforms, while maintaining its commitment to ethical business practices and meaningful content. Clara's role continued to expand as well, and she eventually became the company's chief operating officer, a position that recognized her contributions to the organization's strategic direction and operational excellence. The company's success allowed both women to pursue philanthropic interests that were close to their hearts. They established a scholarship fund for first-generation college students, created mentorship programs for young women entering the media industry, and supported organizations that provided services to single parents and their children. These initiatives gave them opportunities to directly help people facing challenges similar to those they had overcome in their own lives. One of their most meaningful projects was the creation of a program that connected successful professionals with teenagers who were struggling with difficult circumstances. The program was inspired by their own story, though they never explicitly shared the details of their first meeting. Instead, they focused on creating opportunities for young people to receive guidance and support from adults who had navigated similar challenges and found paths to success and fulfillment. As Clara approached her 60th birthday, she reflected on the unexpected turns her life had taken, the ways that a single decision to help a stranger had led to opportunities and experiences she never could have imagined. She had achieved financial security and professional recognition, but more importantly, she had found work that gave her life meaning and purpose. She had raised a son who was making his own positive contributions to the world, and she had built a friendship with someone who had become like a daughter to her. The bond between Clara and Sophia had deepened over the years, strengthened by shared experiences and mutual respect. They had supported each other through personal challenges and celebrated each other's successes. They had learned from each other's perspectives and grown together as leaders and human beings. Their friendship had become one of the most important relationships in both their lives, a source of strength and joy that continued to enrich their daily experiences. On the 20th anniversary of that rainy night when they first met, Sophia surprised Clara with a special gift. It was a framed photograph of the two of them at the Emmy Awards ceremony, but what made it special was the inscription Sophia had written on the back. To Clara Martinez, who taught me that kindness is the most powerful force in the world. Thank you for changing my life by being exactly who you are. Clara hung the photograph in her office at Inspire Media, where it served as a daily reminder of the unexpected ways that compassion and connection could transform lives. Visitors to her office often commented on the photo, noting the obvious warmth and respect between the two women captured in the image. Clara would smile and explain that it was taken at an awards ceremony, but she never told the full story of how their friendship began, preferring to let the power of that moment remain a private treasure shared between two women who had found their way to each other across the vast differences of their backgrounds and circumstances. The story of Clara and Sophia became part of the culture at Inspire Media, though most employees knew only the general outline, that their CEO and COO had met years before, under different circumstances, and had maintained a friendship that eventually led to their professional partnership. What everyone could see was the genuine respect and affection between the two women, the way they complemented each other's strengths and supported each other through challenges. Their leadership style, based on empathy and mutual respect, had created a company culture that attracted talented people who shared their values and vision. Employees at Inspire Media knew that they were working for an organization that valued their contributions as individuals, not just as resources to be utilized for profit. This culture of respect and support had resulted in low turnover rates, high employee satisfaction, and a reputation as one of the best places to work in the media industry. As Clara looked toward the future, she felt grateful for the unexpected journey that had brought her to this point in her life. She had learned that success could take many forms, that fulfillment came not just from personal achievement, but from the positive impact you had on others. She had discovered that kindness was not just a moral obligation, but a practical strategy for building the kind of world she wanted to live in. The teenage girl in the torn prom dress who had sat crying in the rain 20 years ago had become a successful CEO who used her platform to create meaningful content and support important causes. The struggling single mother who had stopped to help a stranger had become a respected business leader who mentored young professionals and advocated for working families. Both women had found ways to transform their personal challenges into sources of strength and wisdom that benefited not just themselves, but the many people whose lives they touched through their work and friendship. Their story continued to unfold, with new chapters being written every day through the projects they supported, the people they mentored, and the example they set for others about the power of compassion and human connection. They had learned that the most important successes in life often came not from achieving your own goals, but from helping others achieve theirs. That the greatest rewards came not from what you accumulated, but from what you gave away. And on quiet evenings, when the work was done, and they had time to reflect on the journey that had brought them together, both Clara and Sophia would sometimes think about that rainy night 20 years ago, when a simple act of kindness had planted seeds that would grow into something beautiful and meaningful that neither of them could have imagined at the time. They had learned that the most powerful force in the world was not money or influence or talent, but the willingness to see the humanity in another person and to respond with compassion and generosity. The story of Clara Martinez and Sophia Clearwater became a testament to the transformative power of human kindness, a reminder that the most important moments in our lives often come not from grand gestures or dramatic events, but from the simple decision to help another person when they need it most. Their friendship and partnership had created ripple effects that extended far beyond their own lives, touching the lives of employees, audiences, and communities in ways that continued to spread outward like circles on a pond. carrying the message that kindness was not just a nice sentiment, but a practical force for positive change in the world. As their story continued to unfold, Clara and Sophia remained committed to the values that had brought them together, using their success and influence to create opportunities for others and to build a more compassionate and just society. They had learned that the true measure of a life well lived was not in the recognition or rewards you received, but in the positive impact you had on others. The kindness you showed to strangers, and the legacy of compassion you left behind for future generations to build upon. Their journey from that rainy night to their current success had taught them that the most important investments we make are not in stocks or properties, but in human relationships. That the greatest returns come not from financial portfolios, but from the love and respect we earn from others through our actions and choices. They had discovered that success was not a destination, but a journey, not a trophy to be won, but a responsibility to be embraced, not a personal achievement, but a collective opportunity to make the world a little better for everyone who inhabits it. And so their story continued, each day bringing new opportunities to practice the lessons they had learned, to extend kindness to others, and to build upon the foundation of compassion and mutual respect that had transformed a chance encounter into a lifelong friendship and partnership that continued to inspire and uplift everyone whose lives they touched. Through their work, their friendship, and their unwavering commitment to the power of human kindness to change the world one person at a time,